You're listening to the Back Porch Talk podcast. Danny and Jason had many discussions and debates on the back porch while making pivotal investment moves with assets. That's right, with trading cards. They welcome you to the back porch and right into those discussions about current sports news with a fresh and unique twist. So come on and join us. Welcome to the Back Porch Talk podcast. I'm your co-host, Jason.
Your co-host, Danny.
Fans, we got a full show for you today. So let's get to it. Danny, first we'll talk about the NBA playoffs, NFL draft, our thoughts, and an interesting trading card scenario. But first, Danny, to the NBA playoffs, where the Milwaukee Bucks actually lost to the Boston Celtics on last evening, tying the series 1-1. And man, Danny, this is just what I saw last night was just bad refereeing, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I also saw the fact that we missed Chris Middleton, but I also saw Jaylen Brown just go completely off in the first half.
Yep.
The Bucks lost 109-86 last evening. Giannis tried to do his thing. Giannis had a terrible first half, but he ended up with 28 points, 9 rebounds, 7 assists. Jaylen Brown had 30 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists. But just an interesting game all the way around, and where Boston was actually making shots, making their 3-pointers that they didn't make in the first game. But I would say this, though. What I saw in the second half was a Milwaukee Bucks team that was a little bit more aggressive. Giannis started to go off, and the Boston Celtics started to miss shots.
Mm-hmm.
And so, Danny, I think the Bucks are going to win this series, but they're going to have all of the team to really contribute. It's just not going to be on Giannis, because I think they're going to clamp down on Giannis a little bit here. We're going to have the outside shooting to be a little bit more consistent, and we're going to miss that mid-range jumper that Chris Middleton actually provides. But nonetheless, I think the Bucks has the opportunity before them, and I think they're going to take advantage of it. What say you, Danny?
Jason, this one was a complete opposite of what happened Sunday. Like you mentioned, Boston, they made 23 pointers. The Bucks made 3.
Mm-hmm.
Jaylen Brown got out to that hot start, which ultimately helped them in the end because Boston went cold in that fourth quarter.
Mm-hmm.
And truth be told, they are playing even ball in the second half. It was just that lead they jumped out to, and Grant Williams had a big game. He had 7 3-pointers. Let me just check to make it official, but he ended up with 21 points. And a lot of his shots, he was sitting there wide open. Like no one was even close. So for them to knock down their shots, and then, like I said, in the second half, Boston looked a little panicked. And in that fourth quarter, they tightened up a little bit. They airballed a couple 3-pointers. They missed some easy shots. And then at the end, they pulled it out. But another key thing in this game was Brook Lopez having 2 points.
Yeah, exactly.
There is no way in the world Brook Lopez should have 2 points.
Oh, man.
In a game against a team that doesn't have a 7-footer. Bud will make the adjustments. I don't see the Bucks losing this series just based on how bad they have been playing.
Mm-hmm.
And I see them turning around once they get home. But another thing was Marcus Smart didn't play either last night.
Mm-hmm.
So curious when he comes. I don't know when he's coming back, if that's going to hurt Boston without having him out there as another body down the stretch of this series. Eagerly anticipating Game 3 on Saturday.
And Danny, just to add to that, so in the first game, Boston shot 50 3-pointers.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the most in franchise history in a playoff game.
Yep.
And they played right into the Milwaukee Bucks drop defense strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Boston couldn't get anything on the inside at all in the first game. Now they had a little success in the second game,
Mm-hmm.
just a little bit of success. I think they went a little bit more towards the mid-range jumper, but definitely in the three-pointers, if you will. I think if Milwaukee continues to play this drop defense, I think they'll be okay, because Boston, they can start off hot. The big question is whether or not they can consistently do this. And I believe it's going to be an adjustment by the Milwaukee Bucks to really go ahead and play really the players in the mid-range game a little bit more, show a little bit more defense. But defensively in game 2, Milwaukee was still okay. That's what leads me to believe that Milwaukee is going to win this game and win this series. And so game 3 is going to be very interesting, like you said, to see how they come out. But man, I'm pulling for Milwaukee in this series. Another game that actually happened last night was that of the Golden State Warriors against the Memphis Grizzlies, and where Memphis actually pulled this game out. And oh boy, what a performance by none other than Ja Morant, man. You kidding me?
Man.
Ja had 47 on him, man. 47, 8 rebounds, and 8 assists. Come on, man. Unfortunately, Gary Payton III actually had a terrible accident, a terrible foul put on him while he was in midair, the probably first 2 minutes of the game. And he ended up actually breaking his elbow. Basically, his arm broke his fall. And what was sacrificed there was the elbow, but nonetheless, bad situation for him. And nonetheless, Memphis ended up winning this game. I think the Warriors had many opportunities to win this game, but couldn't pull it out. Steph Curry had 27 points, 9 rebounds, 8 assists. But man, I just tell you, Danny, you can tell that Steph's handles aren't as crisp, if you will, at times, based upon the turnovers that he gives. Sometimes his passing could be a little lackadaisical, and it equates to some turnovers. And I think I know I saw that in the fourth quarter of this game. Yes. So series is tied 1-1 going back to San Francisco. What say you, Danny?
Jay, these Western Conference games, man, are killing me. I wanted to go to bed last night, and I'm like, dang, this game got really good in the fourth quarter. It was just back and forth. And like you said, Golden State kept turning the ball over. You know, when Steph does that little left-hand pass, he was trying to float it, and I think he had maybe 3 or 4 turnovers at some crucial moments in that game in the fourth quarter last night. And Clay and Steph missed uncharacteristically bad 3-pointers. They had some good looks in that fourth quarter where that could have put them possibly in the driver's seat, and Steph just straight bricked one, which you never see. And Clay airballed one. The Gary Payton situation was very unfortunate. Dylan Brooks was ejected. Steve Kerr made that abundantly clear during the game and after the game about the play. Draymond got knocked out of the game. He ended up coming back. Yeah, man. Ended up getting stitches. Ja Morant's performance was off the chain. He had some big threes. He was taken to the basket. He was just unstoppable in that fourth quarter. And his speed is, they were putting Wiggins on him, which I thought was not actually a bad idea to put some length on him, but he was just getting to his spots. And it's hard to deal with him when he's playing the way he is, man. He was in a zone. So I look for Golden State to bounce back in game 3, especially being at home.
And tonight, Danny, we have the 76ers against the Heat. Without Joel Embiid, I'm not particularly interested in this series until Joel Embiid gets back on the court, quite honestly. The big story here, in my opinion, is James Harden and the lack of him blowing by the first defender. That has been consistently talked about this year. It's consistently still happening in the playoffs. I'm not too interested about this particular series until Joel Embiid gets back, probably when they get back to Philly. This Mavericks-Sun series should be interesting. Can see the Mavericks maybe getting a game in this series. Maybe tonight, maybe that game. Who knows? We'll see. Luka had 45 on him last time around. 45, 12 rebounds, 8 assists. Golly, man. Did anybody else do anything for Dallas, man? But that's going to be an interesting series, to say the least. What say you, Danny?
Yeah, Jay, that Miami Heat Sixers series, I was watching some of that the other night, and Miami got out to a big lead. Philly actually came back and took the lead at half. And then James Harden disappeared. He had, I think, 4 points in the second half. That you cannot have that. You're the superstar. You cannot disappear like that.
And then let me ask you this.
Yeah, go ahead.
Where's this game being played at?
In the bright lights of Miami.
Come on, man. We know the history of James Harden, man. Come on, man. Let's not sugarcoat this thing, man. We know the history of James Harden, man. He probably went to the KOD, man. He probably went to the KOD, man. King of Diamonds, man. We should get an endorsement, King of Diamonds, for promoting y'all. But listen, man. Listen, man. He down in Miami. Come on, man. He down in South Beach. Come on, man. There's a reason why he probably disappeared in the second half, man. Probably was too busy thinking about what he gonna be doing later on that night.
Think about post-game activities.
Come on, man.
So
allegedly,
yes, allegedly. So I think Miami goes ahead and takes care of business. You got to take advantage of Philadelphia without Embiid. So no telling when Embiid's coming back with the orbital fracture and the concussion. But so we'll see what happens tonight there. And then Phoenix and Dallas. If Dallas can make their shots, man, they missed some big shots the other night. Phoenix had control of the game, but Dallas was just hanging around. I don't see Dallas winning the series, but I think they make it competitive just because of Luka and what he can do on the offensive end. DeAndre Ayton had a great game, and he should just destroy Dallas just the way he, with his size and his athletic ability. So just getting them down low, JaVale McGee taking advantage of the height, and then you got the leadership of Chris Paul. So I think they'll be all right, but I think Dallas is just going to make it interesting.
And now, Danny, on to the NFL, where we had a very interesting NFL draft. And let me just say this, Danny. I watched a good portion of this draft. Green Bay Packers started off at the 22nd pick overall, and where they actually drafted Quay Walker, a linebacker from University of Georgia. And then the 28th pick, they went ahead and drafted D lineman, nose tackle, and Devontae Wyatt, again from University of Georgia. Danny, I thought this would be an opportunity actually for the Packers to get a wide receiver in the first round. But it seemed like 6 receivers went in the first round. And there were reports that the Packers tried to trade to move up to actually go ahead and get a wide receiver. That didn't happen. And Danny, let me just say this, man. I got to say this. We talked about this in the previous podcast with regards to the trade of Devontae Adams to the Las Vegas Raiders. Compared to the trade of Tyreek Hill to the Miami Dolphins and what the Dolphins actually gave up. Keep in mind, when Devontae Adams got traded, the Packers only got a first and second round pick off of that trade. I mean, look at what happened, what Kansas City received for Tyreek Hill. Man, Kansas City got a whole lot of picks, man.
Yes, they did.
And this to me screams the reason why I just don't know about Gutekunst, man. Now, granted, he focused on defense. I thought maybe he focused one pick on defense and then another on the wide receiver. Yep. He tried to go ahead and get to move up in the draft to get a receiver. But if you had more picks, maybe that would have sweetened the pot a little bit more for a team to actually trade with you. What saved me from moving on from the Packers, yes, I said it, was the fact that he actually did move up in the second round to draft a wide receiver. Let me just say, we did move up to draft Christian Watson from North Dakota State, who is 6'4", about 208 pounds. He's fast as all get out. Apparently ran a 4.36 40. Now that's some speed. Now, again, fans, go back and review some of our previous podcasts. And we have stated this before. We need some speed at that wide receiver position. And I think we finally drafted some speed here. But in order to move up, Gutekunst gave up a second round pick.
Yep.
So we had 2 second round picks. We gave up a second round pick to move up and to get a receiver. Nonetheless, I think that, again, that really saved me from really just being like, I'm done. The Packers went ahead and in the third round got an offensive lineman in Sean Ryan from UCLA. We got another wide receiver in the fourth round, Romeo Dubes from Nevada. He runs a 4.47 40. He's 6'1", 204. And so we got some more O-line help in the next round. And the next couple rounds, safety and Tyreek Carpenter, D lineman, offensive tackle. So, and we got another wide receiver in the 7th round in Samori Toure from Nebraska, who runs a 4.44 in the 40, 6 feet, 191. So we're starting to think about some speed, starting to think about some replacements here. We'll see what happens, but the move up in the draft in the second round, I think, helped save this draft for the Packers. What say you, Danny?
So, Jason, I'm going to talk about my Falcons here. We went ahead and picked Drake London, wide receiver out of USC, first round with the 8th pick. Thought they may go defense, but you had him on the board. Why not add him to a wide receiving core that's lacking depth? So I thought that was a pretty good pick there. Couldn't go wrong. Second round went Arnold E from Penn State. I don't want to mess his name up because I don't have the correct pronunciation in front of me. But they moved up in the draft, a couple 5 picks to get him. And he's an edge rusher. Desperately need him. So that was a great pick. They got Troy Anderson, guy out of Montana State, linebacker. But this dude in college played running back, linebacker, and a few other positions. So he's like a jack of all trades type player. And thinking about him, when they drafted him, I thought of Taysom Hill as that type of player. So he's defensive primarily, but if you need to flip him on the offensive side of the ball, hey, you have a weapon there. They did pick Desmond Ridder out of Cincinnati as a quarterback, and I'm curious to see how this goes. He's a project, and they're saying it's a battle between him and Mariota for the starting job, so on and so forth, whatever. Mariota's starting. You wouldn't want to throw him into that situation off top. Why not take a chance 3rd round? He may pan out. And then 2, if they are bad, they're back into the top of the draft next year. So they can get someone different if they need to. So it's not a lot invested is what I'm getting at. And then they got another edge rusher, a running back, an offensive lineman, and then a tight end to wrap it up in the 6th round. All in all, from my standpoint, I thought it was a good draft for the Falcons. When they moved up in the 2nd round to get Arnold, I was a little suspect about that because they spent the 4th round pick as well as their 2nd round, but he's a good player, man. And they also just re-signed Grady Jarrett.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So they leverage their picks. They use them wisely, work on that offensive line or defensive line, got some offensive weapons. The rebuild starts, and we'll see how things go. And they don't have Ridley this year, so they'll give Drake London an opportunity to get some good reps in as well, because I see him as the number 1 receiver at this time.
A couple of things, Danny, too. The wide receivers went fast in the 1st round.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, like you said, like you mentioned, the first receiver to go was the likes of Drake London to your Falcons. But then a couple of picks later, Garrett Wilson, and then we went and run on wide receivers. The very next pick, Chris Olave, Jameson Williams to the Detroit Lions. And that was at number 12. And then at number 16, you had Jahan Dotson. And then finally, Traylon Burks at number 18, I believe, from Arkansas. And that was actually a player that the Packers were interested in. So I think probably in their draft board, they were thinking, well, if these receivers who are graded to be 1st round picks are gone, we'll just go ahead and focus in on defense or best player available, if you will. So what I noticed in this NFL draft, though, too, Danny,
mm-hmm.
is the amount of trades that happen. Trading of picks, trading of veteran players, that being AJ Brown from the Tennessee Titans to the Philadelphia Eagles, and then Tennessee going back and going and drafting Traylon Burks, who is ultimately going to be AJ Brown's replacement monetarily as well. So I think teams are now looking at it from the standpoint of, instead of paying all this money, why don't we just go ahead and draft a potential replacement here in Dobbs? So that's what I really saw in this particular draft. The reason why I stayed and watched this draft throughout, Danny, was because there were a few players from my alma mater, Florida A&M University, who were projected to actually be drafted.
Mm-hmm.
One person in particular who I was really clamoring and hoping to really hear his name was none other than Marquise Bell. And Marquise, man, he had a great NFL combine. He actually went to the combine in Indianapolis, and he performed very well. He had interviews with Endall. He had another on-site interview with the Dallas Cowboys, and Marquise's accolades and credentials are first class, man. He is an all-SWAC first team, played in the Legacy Bowl, was in the Reese's Senior Bowl. He's been SWAC Defensive Player of the Week. I mean, all around, great player. 4.41 40.
Yep.
Come on, man. And unfortunately, he did not get drafted. Now, he did sign an undrafted free agent contract in Dahl. But when you think about, and this is just me talking, this is just Jason talking, but when you talk about wealth disparities and the gap in how and when HBCU student athletes are drafted or not drafted, this reeked of what happened. Marquise Bell should have been drafted. His projections to be drafted were like in the 4th round, from what I've seen. Mm-hmm. And so I feel bad, but I feel happy at the same time because he did get signed by the Dallas Cowboys. He does have an opportunity to showcase his talent. But then also he does get a contract, a guaranteed contract at that. And so from what I've seen, I'm seeing reports that he's guaranteed a $200,000 salary, not to put his business out there, but it is allegedly reported through multiple channels there and media outlets with $15,000 signing bonus. Do you know, though, if he was drafted in the 4th round, he could have got significantly more?
Mm-hmm.
So my hope and prayer is that this Rattler goes out and does his thing and then goes ahead and signs on to a full-blown contract. But right after the draft happened, there were a lot of student athletes that went to the transfer portal, man. One being Isaiah Land, also from our alma mater, who played terrifically for Florida A&M University. He, top defender in the FCS, moved to the transfer portal. Isaiah Land is a Buck Buchanan Award winner. My hope is that, he goes into transfer portal, but he comes back to Florida A&M University. Mm-hmm. I don't know exactly why he decided to go into the transfer portal. I don't know. I don't know if it had anything to do with the fact that Marquise did not get drafted. I don't know if it has anything to do with potentially a new athletic director coming on board. But man, when student athletes see or don't see a great student athlete get drafted, when he doesn't get drafted, mm-hmm. that starts to kind of go into the mind of student athletes to say, well, shoot, if he didn't get drafted and he was all world, what is that going to do to me and my potential and my potential of getting drafted?
Yeah.
So, man, I think we're in some kind of dilemma. Coach Prime, he had a quote here. He says, this is flat out wrong. You go into the portal because you don't think you can go pro from a HBCU. Well, a few went yesterday and over 20 went from FCS schools. Be the change that we all desire. Don't run from the challenge. Willie Simmons is a great coach and does an amazing job with exposing his kids and preparing them. I pray he changes his mind and goes back to FAMU because ain't no sure thing you're going to get the reps, exposure, and recognition somewhere else. Just because it looks green don't mean it's grass.
Yep.
That's a quote directly from Coach Prime off of his Twitter. And I would just say this about Coach Willie Simmons. He is a great coach. And this is his quote that he gave to Tallahassee.com or Tallahassee Democrat. His quote, there are a lot of moving parts with the portal. We as coaches don't have a hand in it. Right now, we are in fact-finding stage ourselves. Obviously, I would love for him to stay. And that's a quote from Coach Willie Simmons. So we'll see what happens, Danny. And now, Danny, on to our interesting trading card scenario. Who we got?
Today's scenario, Jason, is Jrue Holiday's 2009 Topps Chrome rookie card for Gary Payton Sr., his 1990 Upper Deck rookie card. Couple quick bios. Jrue Holiday was a 17th overall pick out of UCLA by the 76ers. One-time All-Star, three-time All-Defensive Team, one championship. Career averages 16.2 points, 4 rebounds, 6.4 assists, 46% field goal percentage. Gary Payton, second overall pick out of Oregon State by the Seattle Supersonics. 9-time All-Star, 9-time All-NBA, 1-time Defensive Player of the Year, Hall of Famer, 1 championship. Career averages 16.3 points, 4 rebounds, 6.7 assists, 46% field goal percentage. Jason, who do you want in your portfolio?
Danny, this was tough, but I'm going with Jrue Holiday. I want him in my portfolio because I can tell the story of how he helped the Milwaukee Bucks actually go ahead and win a championship. One of the major plays in that series, in the final series, it was down in Phoenix where he stripped Booker and alley-oop to Giannis. He could have backed it out, but decided to go for it. Alley-oop to Giannis. That's a play that's going to be played forever until the end of time for the NBA. So I'm going with Jrue Holiday. I can tell that story. The glove, it has a great nickname. We got to give a nickname to Jrue Holiday, but the glove has a great nickname. And he went to the finals against the Bulls, but he didn't beat the Bulls. And he did win a championship with Miami, but he was not nearly the same glove as he was in Seattle. I'm going with Jrue because right after he won the finals, he flew on over to win an Olympic gold. That's a story I can tell. Who you got?
Hey, Jason, this one was tough, man. And it was funny looking at this scenario, not even looking at the numbers until they're exactly the same.
The same, yeah.
Exactly the same. And I'm looking at this, man, and the glove with the history with Seattle in those years with Sean Kemp. And those years, they just couldn't get over the hump because the Bulls were in their way or Utah was in their way. And Gary Payton, lockdown defender. So if you're looking at Jrue Holiday now, you never watched Gary Payton. Gary Payton was that dude before Jrue Holiday.
Yep.
Just all up in you, talking smack, all up in your grill, wasn't scared of the moment, and they just couldn't get over the hump. And I look at Jrue, and Jrue was one of my favorite players, man. Once I saw him start shining in New Orleans, and now is when I start clamoring for him when the Bucks actually went and got him. Because I thought that was the missing piece because he's a great defender. He wasn't scared of the moment. He was in the playoffs. He hit some big shots for the Pelicans when he was there. And obviously what he did in the championship run last year. So when I look at the card, I'm going to go Gary Payton's card. At this time, I look at this, though. If the Bucks repeat, I may have to go for a trade and go for Jrue Holiday's card because 2 championships back-to-back in Milwaukee.
Come on, man.
You can't beat that.
Come on, man.
So even though the glove has, he's a Hall of Famer, everything, all the accolades he has, Jrue Holiday to do what he's done and team up with Giannis to make this championship run and possibly go back-to-back, then I want his card. Right now, I'm going to go Gary Payton's card.
Thank you for joining us at Back Porch Talk Podcast. You can also join us on Twitter by tweeting us at @back_podcast. For more information, you can go to our website, which is backporchtalkpodcast.com. You can also email us at backporchtalkpodcast@gmail.com. Again, thank you for joining us, and remember that there's enough hate in the world, so go ahead and spread a little love.